services, and I'm told that I can stay for the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, quite a lot of declarations this evening. Can I just confirm with Democratic Services, given that Councillor Hawson has, I guess, a pecuniary interest being so close, will he need to leave the room as well as stepping away from the table?
Yes, I'm
okay.
sure.
Excellent, thank you very much. So Councillor Hawson, just for that item, we'll ask that you leave the room. Thank you so much. I now turn to agenda item 5, which is urgent business. Emily Hampton, any urgent business this evening?
Yes, please. So just a couple of things I'd like to draw members' attention to, please. Just a reminder that on the 12th of December, the revised National Planning Policy Framework was published. And also on Monday, the 9th of December, the Joint Local Plan was submitted to the Secretary of State for independent examination. So in line with the NPPF, decision makers may give weight to the relevant policies of the emerging plans, but that is dependent on several factors. And that's which stage of the stage of the plan itself and the extent of unresolved objections and degree of consistency with the NPPF. So the starting point for decision makers remains the policies in the current adopted local plans. The joint local plan is at an advanced stage of preparation and therefore carries some weight. Where unresolved objections have been received on policies, limited weight should apply. Full weight does not apply at this stage. Where relevant, officers this evening will advise members of the weight of any emerging policies that need to be considered to the applications they are presenting. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that update. I now turn to agenda item 6, which is public participation. We have 6 items to consider this evening, and we have a number of speakers registered on 4 of those items this evening. I also confirm that some statements from certain people, some of whom are speaking, some of them are not, have been circulated amongst the committee, and we've read them, and we may make reference to them in our questioning or indeed in our deliberations. And then just a final reminder that given that we've got so many items this evening, just a small plea from me that in both our questioning and our debate, we are concise and precise. Okay, and with that, I turn to agenda item 7, which is Botley Centre West Way. Stuart, I believe you're presenting this one.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, thanks, Chair. That's just shown on the screen. Okay. This application comes to committee at the request of Councillor Max Thompson. The application is seeking a variation to amend the clauses of the 10th schedule of the Section 106 legal agreement, which relate to student occupation of the Botley Centre development, which was permitted under application reference P19V1731 FUL. The applicant intends to amend the wording to allow for a greater range of students and employees to occupy the student accommodation and to allow for more flexible tenancies when letting the accommodation due to current market challenges. This is following changes in demand for student accommodation across the city and the district post-COVID, which is resulting in the development only being approximately about 85% occupation. It is proposed to change the wording from, is that going? It's not working. So that's the existing wording on the screen at the moment. I'll try and bring that up a little bit larger.
Good, that'd be great. Okay. So thank you.
Okay, apologies. So yes, so that's the existing wording on the screen. So changing the wording from for a period of at least 43 weeks per year, not to permit the occupation of units of academic residential accommodation other than the full-time students attending universities in Oxford and the Vale, White Horse and South Oxfordshire, or employees but not limited to the interns and the research assistants. Not wanting to meet. So the new wording is for, or oh, sorry, that's the, yeah, for a period of at least 43 weeks again, not to permit the occupation, but then on a course of study of no less than 16 weeks duration, or employees including but not limited to the interns. There's also additional definitions as set out in paragraph 2.5 of the report, which is referring to the definitions within this new clause. And they are the further education, the higher education, and student of further education, and a student of higher education. So the new definitions to be added into a deed of variation. The relevant planning considerations for this application are only the matters for which the modification is sought. All other matters were dealt with as part of the approved application and are not for reconsideration here. So in that regard, there are no amendments to the proposed to the physical built form of the scheme, the number of student units, or cycle parking spaces, internal arrangements, or any of the other facilities that have already been permitted. All remain unchanged. This application is solely amending the wording of the legal agreement. And in a similar vein, regarding the representation from the Friends of Boars Hill that's reported in the report, seeking a 10-week restriction, that's not part of the proposal. And officers consider there are no grounds to introduce this to make the proposal acceptable. And this is on the basis that there is no planning harm identified with the proposed wording changes to warrant further amendment. And the proposed wording changes are set out, as I said, at paragraph 2.4 and 2.5 of the report. They are considered acceptable to your officers and will not result in a material change to the use of the building as student accommodation. And they will not lead to any further detrimental impacts. And the application is therefore recommended for approval as set out on page 20 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Stuart. So we actually have no speakers on this item. We had one statement from Councillor Debbie Hallett, ward member, who says that she supports this application. So I now open the floor up to questions of our officer from members of the committee. Are there any questions? Councillor Batson.
Yes, the one question here seems to be on the time period that people need to occupy the site. Can you explain why 16 weeks is preferred to 10 weeks?
Yes, 16 weeks was following some research that the previous officer that dealt with the application had done with regards to the minimum course length for postgraduate diplomas and other university courses. So 16 weeks was considered to be the minimum period to cover one of those courses that met the definition of a university student.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Any further questions? In that case, I'm suggesting we move into debate on this item. Would someone like to put forward a motion? Councillor Batson.
Yeah, I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
And I've seconded. Councillor Briggs. So, is there any debate? In which case, I'm suggesting we vote on this application. So, all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, Stuart. Can we call Councillor Horton back in? We'll move on to the next item, which is the land north of Copenhagen Drive. And Councillor Horton, thank you for rejoining us. Thank you. Well, thank you, Hannah. I believe you're presenting on this one. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully the text works shortly. Just click on the buttons and local issues. Usually meeting it should only run 2.5 hours. Am I able to take an extra 5 or 10 minutes beyond that because of the tech issues I've had? Or do I need to author those at 9:30?
I would say people vote at 9:30.
Okay. Should we see where we are?
See where we are, I would say people vote at
Thank you.
9:30.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
The application that we are considering tonight is for a hybrid type of application. It is an outline and FUL. We have two elements to it. This is the location of the application site, which is in Abingdon. This is a wider context of the proposal, and this is a more localized view. The proposal is for a care home, which is the FUL part of the application, and 39 residential units that are under the outline proposal. Now I will bring the location plan and the layout plan. So to the top, we have the layout of the proposed 39 residential units, and to the south, which is located here, we have the proposed care home. The access is going to be achieved from Copenhagen Drive, which is located just in here. And the application is presented to committee because of the Abingdon Town Council has objected to the proposal. Just to give the members a little bit of a history and background of this application site, if I may go back to this location slide. The application site itself forms a part of a larger allocation in our local plan that allocated this site, the tiny triangle site to the north, as well as this on this photo area for at around 200 homes, which is the residential use. And so far we have the David Wilson Homes development that is currently completed or nearly completed on this site. We do have Aldi Superstore in here, and the proposal site is included here. So that application, in principle, the proposal in principle is considered acceptable in policy and development officers in terms of its use, because it's for residential use. Objections have been raised with regards to the care home element, and it has been disputed that the care home does not fall into the residential use class, which we as the officers have assessed the proposal against the policies, the relevant policies, and it is considered that care home does form a part of a residential use that the application was allocated in the local plan. The objections have also been raised with regards to a close location to A34, which is generating noise, as well as the concerns about drainage and highways impact, which is going to be, in objectors' point of view, detrimental to Copenhagen Drive and the roundabout. Just going through those issues one by one. In terms of the allocation of the site, those aspects have been taken into account when the application was allocated and assessed by the inspector at the local plan examination. The highways officers from Oxford County Council have assessed the impact of the proposed development. The 39 units and the 75 bed care home have been assessed as not having a detrimental impact upon the package and the network. The network is considered to be at capacity with or without the development. Therefore, there is no material change identified as a result of this development. There will be in total 10 trees that are going to be lost along Copenhagen Drive in order to allow for the access. The proposal is also considered separately, and it is including the hillside principle, which means the care home, which is the FUL part of this proposal, can be delivered separately to the residential units that are under the outline proposal. Therefore, we have 3 phases that are considered. For this application, there is the phase that is the residential, phase that is the care home, and the phase that is proposing the infrastructure that is needed for the proposals under this application. I will now show the committee visualizations and a little bit of elevation details for the proposed care home. In terms of its layout, it's been designed in a way to provide the private amenity space for the future residents in a way that it is within a courtyard arrangement that provides the best acoustic environment for this development. Therefore, the noise has been taken into account when the proposal was designed, as well as the mitigations that have been included in the build form and the fabric of the building, which is special glazing that is going to be preventing any external noise to be exceeding the limits we would like to see. This is another view in terms of the care home. And there is the visualization from the Copenhagen Drive that is located on the right-hand side. And a couple of photographs to show the members. This is the photo taken from the Lidl side. So you have your A34 located here that runs to the side of the photo. Copenhagen Drive is located in the background, and that is where the proposal for residential element of this application is going to be delivered. This is the view from the David Wilson Homes development. So there is Aldi, A34 runs to the back, and Copenhagen Drive is to your left. The next photo is showing the site from the roundabout. Copenhagen Drive is located here, and Aldi store is the A34 in the background. And a couple of photos in terms of where the access is going to be. So the loss of the trees have been assessed by the tree officer and by the landscape officer. It's considered acceptable because there is going to be a robust mitigation in terms of the landscape proposal that is going to go along with the care home and later on with the residential proposal for this site. And there is another photograph taken along Copenhagen Drive. The access more or less is proposed in here, and the application site in itself is located on the other side of the site. So as additional measures to help out with the access to the site, the applicants are now proposing a toucan crossing that initially was not included in the application proposal. However, upon the discussions and negotiations with the county officers, the applicants have agreed to provide this additional crossing next to the roundabout that's going to be located more or less in here. In terms of drainage, there also have been queries and concerns raised by the objectors with regards to the proposal, the proposed scheme. The drainage is going to be delivered and secured by a pumping, which initially colleagues in environmental department have raised concerns because we would like to see other ways of dealing with drainage. However, due to geological constraints of the site and the outlets that are available, the agreement between us, the LLFA, and the applicant was to provide a pumping solution for the site. Obviously, we will have SADs, we will have other sustainable elements of the drainage included on the site as well. However, this has been resolved through the negotiations with the LLFA and our drainage officers within the council. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, we've got a number of speakers on this application, but I'm sure we'll return to you for some questions once we've heard from them. So our first speakers are Councillor Mark Giddens and Councillor Victoria Walker. You have 3 minutes to share between you. So please do come on up.
Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Well, very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Well, look, you've got 3 minutes and you've got a 30-second warning, so please do begin when you're ready.
Okay, we still query the site moving from a class C3 residential to a C2, and why an additional care home when the 80 beds at Abbey Fields hasn't yet been built, and are significant numbers within the district already. So we are concerned about that within his diet at the moment, and you need a nominated GP for a care home. I have today received confirmation from Long Furlong and Marcham Road practices that even with their planned expansions, they cannot cope with this additional commitment. And they have also said that their expansions have not yet got underway due to unexpected hurdles with the planning process. The officer's report also states no sill payable, but even allowing for permitted exceptions, my understanding was that on residential above 10, there is sill payable. So I'm slightly baffled by that, and we would raise that query in our objections. We also do tend to disagree with the highways officers' take on the Wootton Road roundabout. That is actually an ongoing discussion point with the Abingdon Traffic Advisory Committee and OCC Highways on a very regular basis, and we know it's not working. Surveys are a snapshot. There's a difference when you are local and see it day on day. And so we do object on that basis. I would just say I can send in the comments from Long Furlong and Marchant Road. I would suggest that if the committee do decide to follow officers' recommendations, we would ideally ask that the application be deferred until the medical situation is addressed, and we would support that no occupations on the development either should occur before completion of the new Lodge Hill slip roads. Those would be our modifications if you wish to proceed, but we still object.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Gibbons. I will see if there are any questions and clarification for either of you from us. Councillor Pickles.
Could you just clarify about the need for, I mean, obviously you're both Abingdon Town Councillors. Can you just qualify what the need is for care homes in the Abingdon area? Are you aware that there is an urgent need for care homes?
I'm not. Councillor? I'm not.
But there is a need for kind of small to medium-sized affordable housing in that side, as you said.
Absolutely. And I would also suggest at the older end of the market, downsizing, because otherwise you don't get a market that works for families or for older people who don't need care homes.
Thank you. Councillor Hannaby.
Yeah, as a comment from the county, we did, if you remember, push for extra care housing, but that now, due to the way that we deliver at county, ways of keeping people safe in their homes, etc., we're now withdrawing from that situation, and we are trying to keep people in their homes more. And I suspect that why the county go along with this is because there's 39. Did I say that? Did you say there was 39?
39, yes.
Yeah. So it's just I was in, and also some care homes have their own private doctors. They don't always use a local.
Was that a question for Councillor Gibbons, or is that?
No, I just really made a statement with my county.
That's right. We can bring that into the debate. But any further questions for either of the councillors? Obviously, thank you very much for your time this evening. And I'm now going to turn to our second speaker, which is Pete O'Hare. I'm hoping I've pronounced it correctly, who is speaking in objection to this application. Sorry. Thank you very much for joining us. As with everyone else, you'll have 3 minutes. You'll get a 30-second warning. So please, when you're ready.
I'll try to keep it very short. My main concern, and I have many of them, is the drainage strategy for the development. The site location plan, that's figure 2.1, specifies an unnamed watercourse located to the east, that's the other side of the Wootton Road, to discharge the surface water and runoff in the development. Now, if you look at an ordnance survey map, there is no such watercourse. It is in fact a drainage ditch that was a legacy from the days when the land was used for agricultural purposes. The developers proposed pumping accumulated water from the southwest corner of the site into a chamber located again on the opposite side, that's the east side of the Wootton Road, where the old drainage ditch entered a culvert into an aging underground piping system. The pressure of moving high volumes of water into a confined space will interfere or restrict the gravitational flow of the water from the oldie site and whatever else is draining into that ditch. This will cause an overspill and flooding potential to houses located on Dunmore Road and Wooden Road. Please note this has happened in the recent past. It is important that any service water runoff should be contained and dealt with on the site and not pushed elsewhere. Now, I'm astonished to see that there was no Environment Agency report relating to a flood risk assessment for the properties in the surrounding area. When you look at the issues encountered with other developments in Northampton, and I'll just restrict my comments. As you can see, I have put an awful lot in.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'll now ask if there are any questions of clarification from you from the committee. I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening. I now turn to our next speaker, which is Scott Davidson, who is speaking in support of this application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Davidson. As everyone else, 3 minutes when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Davidson. I'm the Managing Director of Henry Davidson, the applicant for this planning application. The application site is allocated within the Vale of Whitehorse plan, and your officers have confirmed that this allocation covers both residential and the care, and our proposal is therefore fully policy compliant. We've seen a letter of injection from a local care home operator, and we've responded to this as it contains a number of factual inaccuracies. In addition, a care need assessment was carried out, and that care need assessment confirms that there is, at today's date, a shortfall of 357 care home bed spaces. This will increase to 911 by 2041. We have contracted with a quality care home operator who have clearly done their own research and are committing a £16 million investment based on that decision. We had 2 pre-app meetings with your officers, and they set out really the key matters that we should address when we were bringing this forward, namely the noise, flooding and highway. With regard to flooding, the application before you is supported by a very robust risk assessment, and the drainage strategy incorporates sustainable urban drainage principles. We have met with the council's drainage officer and the lead flood on a number of occasions, and the scheme is supported and there are no objections. With regard to noise, the 834 directly to the site is clearly the main source. We engaged with an acoustic consultant from the outset, and the layout complies fully with the WHO standards for noise, both within the dwellings, within the care home and within private amenity spaces. Your environmental health officer has raised no objection. With regard to highways, the access proposals have been modified through the application process, and there are no objections from Oxford County Council Highways. In relation to other matters, there are no objections from our environmental health in relation to air quality. The extent of public open space is 100% policy compliant. The design for the care home follows multiple meetings with your urban design officer, who found them acceptable. We will provide policy compliant levels of Section 106 contributions. There is a steel contribution and affordable housing. We have agreed a compliant biodiversity net gain strategy based on off-site provision. The project will deliver economic benefits, including jobs within the care home, as well as those created during the construction phase. The design of the building exceeds Part L building regs. In summary, the proposals before you are such that we have a high quality scheme which provides much needed social housing and care facilities, has no objections on a technical and design consultation basis, and is recommended for your officers. Just one point, I didn't hear how many trees Hannah said when she was, but I think there are 4 trees lost at the entrance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now turn to any questions of clarification you might have. Don't have any questions.
Can you just go through the level of analysis being done to identify the need for a care home?
Yeah. So we commissioned a need assessment for care homes within the Vale of Whitehorse. That was commissioned by a proper company. They basically looked at the bed space that's available, both quantitative and qualitative, and they look at the ageing population, look at that demand, and they have basically said that there are 357 care home bed spaces required today in excess of those that are available, and that does include.
That's in the Vale of Whitehorse.
Yeah, and it does include the one on Dunmore. That's included in the calculations, one that's not been built. So there's a robust report, and that was submitted as part of the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Briggs.
You said about 4 trees being chopped down.
Yes, I didn't hear when Hannah said I couldn't hear. Forgive me. And
I believe Hannah said 10.
Yes,
that's in total.
In total,
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear. So that was just.
So 4.
I thought it. Yeah. So there's 4 at the entrance. That was all. Sorry, 4. I
Right,
say
okay.
4.
So would they be planted? Will trees be planted in their place?
There's a landscaping scheme. There's not 4 new trees because we've actually got obviously the access to the site goes in there, but there's a full highway landscaping design, and it's a boulevard approach. So there's tree-lined boulevards running down, and so yes, there is enhancement, and then of course we've got the biodiversity net gain. So therefore, you look at the state of the site, and we've obviously got to make contribution to biodiversity as well.
Any further questions, Councillor Pickles?
Could you just comment on the previous speaker mentioned about drainage? And I know that you mentioned drainage, and why we should be very sure about. But can you sort of a specific concern about the outlet that's being pumped to?
Yeah.
Can you just kind of cover that off? I mean,
Yes.
Is the gentleman accurate or is what?
I won't comment on. That's not for me to say, because all I can tell you is that we have been through the ringer with lead flood and your drainage officer. So I can tell you what the solution is that there's basically there's swales around the site. The site is permeable, so all the paving is permeable. So the water hits it, as much of it as possible, based on the geology, will migrate through the ground. What doesn't migrate through the ground will go into the drainage systems, the swales, and it goes into oversized pipes, that's the design. So they sit in the oversized pipes, goes to the pumping station, and the pumping station pumps it into the brook. That brook was upgraded, I believe, as part of the Barrett scheme, and has been approved by lead flood and your internal, your council's drainage officer. And it wasn't an easy ride. We've had to explain how that's done, provide calculations, etc. So all I can say is I'm just following the mathematics of experts, and so I would say that gentleman was wrong, but on that basis, all we can do is just follow the maths and follow the design that our engineers and your officers have approved.
I'm sorry.
Anything further? Councillor Pickles.
The point was raised about the provision of GP. So, I mean, I live in Aberdeenshire, and I'm well aware of the fact that it's incredibly difficult for the GP in Aberdeen for anybody at the moment.
Yeah.
So, how will this actually work in practice? Because the current situation isn't going to change anytime soon.
No, agree.
And certainly, this building, if you've got permission, will be long built before it's resolved.
Yeah.
So, how is this going to work in practice?
So we are making a contribution to healthcare as part of the agreed contributions. I'll let you obviously confirm, but I think it's 61,500. So, but I think that's the healthcare. However, if I can find it, please God, there is the care home does provide its own medical. There are 7 registered nurses in there and an on-call doctor privately. So I'm not saying clearly when you come to emergency, but certainly within the building itself, there are 7 registered nurses, medically trained. So that would, in my view, help alleviate, and it would be self-contained to some extent.
And there's 7 nurses concurrently, or in total?
No, that is 7 at any one point in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Briggs.
Would there be a GP?
There's not. a GP in-house. No,
The-
no, it's not a GP in-house. No.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to clarify, you mentioned that you engaged with a noise consultant.
Yeah.
I was wondering if anything similar had been done regarding any air quality issues, or was it just
Yeah,
focusing on the noise?
so we did, so part of the report, we had to do an air quality assessment.
Mhm.
And the air quality assessment was carried out by a professional. That was submitted, and the environmental health officer came back and confirmed that there are no issues with with air quality.
Thank you.
Any further questions? In which to say thank you very much for your time this evening for answering our questions. I now turn to our final speaker on this application, Councillor Robert Levison. Thanks. Good evening, Councillor Levison. You know the drill. 3 minutes when you're ready, I guess.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you this evening. I'm the ward councillor for the area which this application resides in, land north of Copenhagen Drive, Abingdon, which is commonly known as the Circus Field. I've been aware of this application for a while and have been in contact with the planning officers last year about it. In general, I believe that a social good is served by the building of new houses, particularly affordable or first homes, as many young people in this area do struggle to find homes which they can afford to live in. However, this must be supported by infrastructure. I was saddened to see that the nursery, which was a part of this application for a long time, has been removed prior to its arrival at the committee this evening. The care home, in addition, will put more intense strain on medical services in Abingdon. In particular, I must call the committee's attention to the objection on the long furlong medical centre, which you'll find noted on page 43 of your report. The Long Furlong Medical Centre is the centre most closely situated to this site, with other facilities in Abingdon being located in the centre of town and not in the northern part of Abingdon, which is obviously where this site is. I do acknowledge that there's been no objection from the Integrated Care Board. I found that a little bit surprising, I have to say, given that we have hundreds of houses going up just next door to this. Again, with no new GP surgery there. The dental services in Abingdon are also under pressure. I can say that from personal experience, having tried to find a dentist a couple of years ago and having to call around about 3 or 4 different dentists before I found one that was even taking new patients. This for me is the most important issue. I did have some brief conversations with officers about traffic last year, but given the relatively small size of the development, I do think a restriction on occupation prior to the completion of Lodge Hill might be, I would say, a little bit of a stretch. It is only 39 new residential dwellings along with the care home. So it was something that I explored in contact with officers last year, but I do think it's a bit of a stretch given the small number of homes. My closing remark would be that although I'm broadly supportive of development of the site, particularly the houses, I mean, I wasn't aware of any particular demand for new care homes in Abingdon. In fact, we recently had a new care home open up on Ox Street, and we've got the new one coming up in Abbey Fields as well. It'd been my impression, not having surveyed anything, that Abingdon was pretty well served for care homes. And in fact, I can say from personal experience, I was involved in the end-of-life care of a friend of our family a few years ago who had to move into a care home at very short notice, and there were no problems at all finding a place.
Yes, I'm afraid you're out of time, but thank you very much for your time this evening. Are there any questions from the committee for Councillor Madison? Can't see any, so I say thank you very much for your time this evening. So I'm now going to turn to any questions the committee may have for Hannah, for our officer. So have anyone got any questions? Councillor Horton.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just clarify for me. We had some of our speakers saying that CIL is not payable and some saying
Yes,
it is
yeah.
payable. Could you clarify what the situation is
Yes,
for
yes.
us?
Apologies. There is probably one sentence missing in the report. Basically, because it is an outline application and FUL application, the report was trying to combine two proposals at once. So the residential bit, which is 39 units, is still liable, and it is 280 pounds per square meter. So yes, still will be coming to us at the reserve matters stage, because that is when we can actually calculate the floor space, because then we will know what the type of the houses are. So apologies, this is misleading, but it is a one sentence missing from the
So there's
report.
no CIL on the care home, but there will be
There will be still on the, yes. We also have secured the financial contributions in terms of the legal agreement, which Mr. Davidson has correctly stated. It is 61.560 thousand pounds for healthcare, and that came from the request of the providers. We have also secured contributions towards the transport, infrastructure, education, and waste. So there are financial packages to mitigate this application in place.
And are they, sorry, Chair, are those packages, I'm slightly struggling to, are they tied to the full application for the care home, or will they come further at the reserve matters for the houses?
So they will be secured at once, and there's like a one legal agreement, and the total is 4,489.698.
Okay.
So yes, we will
only CIL that's waiting on the.
Yeah, thank you.
So just so I've got completely clear about this as well. So CIL is not liable on the care home, but CIL is liable on the other section. The £61,500 that's been proposed for health provision, is that on the basis of the care home, or is that on the basis of the full application with the house?
That would be ready with the house.
Okay, right. Thank you. Right, further questions, Councillor Bills.
Yeah, so I went back and looked at the Parliament local plan again once in foresight. I didn't even go to the website and look at the new one. And if I look at the intent of what I think I've read there, this is not for a care home, it's for residential dwellings. And given we have a housing crisis, particularly for young people in our area, I just want to understand from you your perspective on how a decision has been reached to allow effective reclassification of the site, and do you believe that the care home is more important than maintaining probably the original intent of the local plan to provide residential accommodation? And I think in that particular site, if you look at the particular layouts and things that have been bandied around before, it's largely small to medium-sized units with quite a large bias towards affordable housing.
When we were assessing this application, we've been in discussion with our policy team who are dealing with the local plan when it was drafted and then sent for examination. We have also received a comment in terms of the interpretation of the allocation for 200 homes, which the template for the site states the application is allocated for. And the understanding of us as the officers who are dealing with this application is that when this is assessed against the whole plan holistically, we have several number of policies that are supporting the provision of residential units as well as the provision for the elderly, and especially core policy 2026 that relates to this provision. It basically states that residential dwelling houses designed for older people with or without care should be provided in strategic allocations, which that would meet that criteria. It is going to be closely related to other amenities and facilities within the site, close to the site, which takes another requirements for the policy, and the supporting text to policy 26, because when we do assess the proposals, we do need to take them holistically rather than just the wording of the policy itself. Is the supporting text as well, is the accommodating current and future needs for aging population, set out the preference for schemes to include the provision, and supporting text also outlines that the range of models that can play in part providing this specialist accommodation for older people, including care homes, as it is in our paragraph 6.22 of the local plan. So I'm not expecting you to now familiarize yourself with this. So the plan does not have a glossary definition in terms of what the residential dwelling house is designed for older people, and therefore context provided in the paragraph of the local plan is helpful in interpreting that policy. In this regard, it is agreed that this type of development is supported on the site in principle, given that it is not deviating from being a commercial or being a business. It is still providing homes for people. That's why we have taken a balanced decision that C2 will be still considered acceptable in principle on the site.
Any further questions for our officer? Please, Councillor.
In terms of the suitability of the site for care home, I mean, albeit it's next to an Aldi, it's not actually a great location for a care home because it's not close to the centre of the town. I mean, the other care home they're building is right next to the community centre, which there's a community area. I mean, you're very familiar with development, so that's an ideal location for community for a care home. This one, it's really out on a limb. I mean, and it's quite difficult to get into Abingdon, and the bus services aren't very good. And I just wondered if that was part of the weighting you gave to this decision.
Its location was partially, yes, on balance. We have taken into account its proximity geographically and the distances involved in terms of where it is located, and also the public transport available to the site. And we have number X1, I believe, and another. Yes, yeah. We do have the store as well next to it, but all the facilities that Abingdon can offer are still considered to be in an acceptable and maybe not walkable, because obviously we will have the elderly residents living there, but it is still acceptable in terms of its distances and what the town can offer to the residents of the care home.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? I'm going to suggest we move into debate. So on that basis, could I please have a motion on this application?
May I suggest that we take the opposite position, please?
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the recommendation as stated. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Batson.
Yes, I'm happy about that.
Thanks. We've got a motion to accept the officer's recommendation, so I open the floor to debate. Councillor Pickles.
I mean, I'm deeply uncomfortable with this application. I mean, I understand the hard work that's been put into it by the officers, but we're being asked to accept something which I think the genuine intent of the local plan was to provide affordable housing on the site, because of the nature of the site. So I don't buy the kind of rationale between changing what's actually going to be there. But however, there's almost like a bigger point here. There's just the infrastructure isn't in place to deal with the site. I think we've reached a tipping point in Abingdon, particularly on the Whoopi Road. I mean, the officer said that Highways had said that that part of the road was already at capacity, and putting a Pelican crossing in there and putting even a small number of extra traffic is just going to make it completely exacerbate a really dreadful situation. We hear about the kind of healthcare provision. I just think there are too many unknowns about this particular site, unfortunately, for me to support it.
Councillor Briggs.
Yeah, I'm resident of Abingdon. I'm not on this board, but I've heard from other residents that send me emails, and there is the lack of GP facilities, the lack of dentists, particularly NHS dentists. So that's one of the things that I disagree with that.
Any further points of debate? Councillor Blackstone.
I would just point out that the Integrated Care Board has commented on this, and apparently believe that the medical facilities are sufficient. Now, I'm not a great fan of the Integrated Care Board, but they are the experts in this matter. Although I am a bit worried that the Long Furlong Medical Centre objects. It's the NHS fighting each other, which is a bit worrying.
Yes, well, I am a trustee actually of a voluntary care home, so I should have said that a bit earlier. Sorry, I have no financial interest in it, and so I know a bit about these, and they are very valued, and I know there are people that really don't go outside. And if anything happens to them, then usually there is a house that may be sold, etc. as well. It's just how it is. But there are very strict rules about ratio to nurses, etc. to people that are in there. And the residents have every right to have an ambulance, and they have every right to have a doctor. And if the doctors can't cope there, then they will have to find a doctor themselves, which we've just heard, I think, from the gentleman that spoke to them. I have looked at it. There's no objections again from statutory people, and it will fit there. I'm sorry about the nursery, but then I suppose that's an economic thing. But I really can't see anything to turn this down on, other than I accept the concerns of the Abingdon residents.
Anything further on this? Councillor Horton.
Chair, it feels quite odd to me, this coming through sort of two, I appreciate it's all on site, but two applications that we're almost considering semi-independently. To me, the outline permission on the houses is they have little to object to that on at all. It does seem to be the care home which is taking up most of the debate here, and I fully see why. You know, we've seen the officer's view that it's an acceptable change of, well, not change of use, but the, you know, sort of C3 to C2, and you know, I suppose it is up for question whether that is what the intention was. I'm quite torn on this one.
Anything further on this one? Well, in that case, I'm going to suggest we take a vote on this application. So we have a motion in place to accept the officer's recommendation to approve this application. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That passes. Okay, thank you very much, Hannah, and all our speakers. I'll just wait a second for people to make their leave. Well, Hannah, I believe you're presenting the next one as well. So excellent. So we will move on to our next application, which is the land south of Curie Avenue, Harwell campus. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Hannah, when you're ready.
So the current proposal that we are going to be considering right now is for full planning permission for the erection of the employment building of 6.5 thousand square meters of employment floor space across the class uses B2 and E, which is offices, research, development, and general industry. So this is a wider context location of the application site, which is located within Harwell campus. And the Harwell campus is allocated in development plan for employment generating purposes. It is already home to many scientific research and development of high technology firms, and part of the campus, including this site, is also designed in the enterprise zone. The next slide indicates a little bit of a close-up context. So the application is called Tech Edge 3 and 4, which forms a part of a wider proposal that is also delivered to the right-hand side, which is Tech Edge 1 and 2. These buildings are already completed, and the application site is adjoining and immediately located to the left of what you can see on the application side. There was a very extensive and intense pre-application engagement with the applicants to achieve the best outcome for this proposal, given that it is located sensitively in the AONB. So this is the proposed layout, the building. There are many alterations to this proposal, and because Parish Council have objected to this proposal, we are considering this application tonight, mainly due to the loss of the trees, which you could probably see on this slide in here. However, our officers internally, the landscape officer, the ecology officer, and the tree officers have assessed and reassessed the proposal, and they have concluded that the loss of the trees and the landscape and biodiversity that we have on site at the moment is going to be well and sufficiently mitigated with the scheme that is proposed by the applicant. So following to the proposed layout, we are going to have generous boundary buffers that are going to be providing robust landscape, trees, and biodiversity enhancements. If we do look at the application's proposal in terms of the elevations, all the perimeters of the proposal are in line with what our campus master plan includes. The proposal has been designed in a way to be sensitively fitted as well in terms of its palette of the colors and materials, as well as lighting scheme, to have the minimum impact on the sensitive location, which is the AONB. Access is going to be provided from Curie Avenue, which is already built and constructed up to the red line area, which committee members will be able to see it in the photographs that I will be sharing soon. And these are the proposed visualizations of the proposal. So it is quite modern in terms of its design and quite simplistic, but not too overbearing in terms of the location of the site. So taking the photographs from the public point of view, the site is located behind this tree line and the vegetation. You are not able to exactly see the site itself from that perspective. And when we do move closer to the site, this is what is the current state of the application. It contains the trees and it contains hedges and some vegetation that will have to be cleared out for the proposal to come forward. All of those elements have been assessed and, as I've mentioned, reassessed by the relevant technical officers. Following the submission of the objection from the Parish Council, we have reached out to our tree officers again to reassess whether the trees that have been objected to by the Parish Council to be removed are worth of being TPO'd, and they concluded that they're not going to be really visible from the public domain. They are not visually adding any value, so there is no objection to them being lost, and the mitigation that is proposed on these boundaries in terms of the buffers and landscapes will sufficiently mitigate for the loss. And these photographs are taken from within the campus itself. So package 1 and 2, the first part of the development, is already completed, and that is the access to the site. The application site is located in here, and the context of the site is going to be located within the already changed landscape and build-up area, which we have seen many of the new proposals being built and completed. By the time when this is going to be completed, the other ones are going to be finished off as well. So these are the photos taken from within the site. You can see tech edge 1 and 2 here on the right-hand side of this photograph. And this is another photograph taken from within the site showing where the application site is going to be located. Officers consider that on balance, it's a shame that the trees are going to be lost, but this site is allocated for employment. It is in the enterprise zone, and there were extensive and very intense discussions with the applicants during the pre-application stage to achieve the best outcome in terms of its design, location, scale, massing, and materials that are used are sustainable elements for this proposal to help with the PNG and being more sustainable in terms of its delivery. Therefore, taking what the employment benefits this proposal will bring to the local area and to the council, it is recommended that this proposal is approved subject to section 106 and the recommended conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hannah. Again, which answer you want to be heard from our speaker. So our first speaker on this application is joining us virtually. That's Councillor Roger Turnbull, representative of East Hendridge Parish Council. Councillor Turnbull, are you there? So good evening.
Would you like me to speak?
Excellent. Yes. Yes.
Good evening.
Excellent. Good. You've got 3 minutes when you're ready. Please begin.
Right. Is the principle of employment at Harwell campus. However, it seeks the committee defer a decision for a site visit. This is based on the conflicting findings of the tree report, the design and access report, and the land report, and on the grounds that the case officer accepts the tree loss will be considerable. Not to hold a site visit or to revise the scheme, the Parish Council seeks an amendment to a planning condition, to landscape condition, stating that an avenue of lime trees will be planted within the reinforced vegetation along the campus boundary adjoining the restricted byway to mitigate the loss of the category A lime tree and other trees and comply with policy CP 44. The tree survey proposes to remove over 50 trees, that is half the tree canopy of woodland on the site, on the grounds that the trees are generally of poor quality. But this reason would apply to any site. High quality trees are usually rare, so trees are normally of generally poor quality. However, one lime tree in the proposed service area to the northeast of the site is a 15-metre high quality category A tree, and a site visit is sought to determine 3 matters. Firstly, this lime tree is regarded as of low landscape value by the forestry officer. Whether you accept that or whether you accept the landscape report's findings that the proposed buildings will be seen from the restricted byway to the rear of the existing tree belt in year 1 and in year 15. And so the lime tree is of high landscape value in this respect. Secondly, whether the loss of the lime tree would remove its softening effect on the proposed development and adversely affect visual amenity when seen from the proposed nature trail or by walkers, cyclists and horse riders using the byway. And I've asked for a photograph to be put up showing that. Lastly, the 25-year period required for the proposed landscape planting to replace the lost tree canopy, whether it is sufficient to enhance the overall treescape to mitigate the loss of the lime tree, the other trees, given that in landscape impact assessment, a 15-year period is used. So there's a conflict between whether the trees to be replaced in 15 years or 25. Policy, just finishing, policy CP 44 on landscape protects key features like trees. The government advice is that loss of trees is a material consideration, and trees taking decades to reach can be removed in minutes. Finally, the application poses 6,000 square meters of floor space on 17% of the site. A minor amendment to the site layout to retain the lime tree on the remaining 83% should not be difficult, and 4 alternative layouts are given in the design action statement. Thank you for allowing me to speak from the island of Tenerife.
Oh, lovely. Excellent. Councillor, thank you for taking time out of your vacation. Well, assumed vacation. Thank you for taking the time. Can I just ask a question of clarification? I want to be very clear. So if we're minded to approve this application, you requested an amendment to a condition. Could you just state again what amendment you would like and to which condition?
It's the landscape condition.
Yeah.
So there'd be a general landscape condition seeking approval of the landscape scheme. And I'm asking an amendment stating that an avenue of lime trees would be planted within the reinforced vegetation along the campus boundary, which adjoins the restricted byway.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask if there are any further questions for you. I can't see any, so I'll say, Councillor Turnbull, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Yes, and I call upon our next speaker.
Thank you. I'll turn off my mic.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mark Beddoe, who is speaking in objection to this application.
Right. Before you start, can we put up the first picture, please?
Yes, yes.
Sure. Excellent. I'm also a member of East Anglia Parish Council, but this is more my personal view, as you'll find out. The application area is well known to ex-UKAEA workers at Harwell site as Hillside. Hillside was, in the heyday of science and innovation, an estate of prefab occupied by Harwell workers and scientists. Amongst these people was Klaus Fuchs, later the Los Alamos Super Device team, not a minor player. I know this area well. For 10 years, I cycled through Hillside, that way, to Harwell's North Gate. The prefabs are gone, but the area was wooded and bucolic. Next picture, please. Excellent. This, the concept, an application of beauty seems to be lost on the applicant. The tree plot of the area from the withdrawn application to fell trees properly shows the detail of a clear fell of 40-year-old mature trees. This diagram has not been included in your application. You may wish to include it. The designation of this proposed facility is Tech-Edge 4. There are already 3 others in construction or completed. This should be sufficient enough for a glut of innovators. Next picture, please. I suggest the committee should carefully consider the loss of biodiversity and burden insect habitat by felling of mature trees of hillside and the subsequent levelling of the ground area. We are told these things matter for the future and that there are obligations to consider them. But it also seems that these things are brushed aside for growth, and I might suggest greens. In summary, this is a tech edge too far. I would recommend that the members of the planning committee visit the site before the decision and by deferring the decision tonight to draw your own conclusion. As Councillor Turnbull has also mentioned, as is also supported by John Sharp, Chair of East Anglia Parish Council. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
One more picture?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I like that one. Okay.
So yes, just for clarity, so which is that the mature lime tree?
I don't think that, I'm not a tree specialist.
Okay, no, it's fine. I just wanted
tree,
the
tree is quite nice.
Okay. So it didn't look like it anyway. So
but it is in there somewhere.
Thank you. I'll just see if there are any other questions or clarification for you, Mr. Vale. I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your statement here this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now call upon our next category of speakers, which are speaking in support of the application, which is Stephen Sensible, I think that's how it. Apologies. Craig Thompson and Stephen Roberts. You'll have 3 minutes to share between you, but you don't all have to speak. So please, would you mind introducing yourself, just so I know?
So, thank you, Chair. I'm Stephen Sensible, Head of Planning Development at Carter Jonas and Planning Consultant to our campus.
Thank you very much. Well, you have 3 minutes when you're ready.
First point, that tree that you had on the screen is not the lime tree. Just for absolute clarity.
Can you tell me what tree? Oh, gosh.
Please.
Second point, and you've heard from your officer, you've got a very comprehensive report. This is an allocated employment site. There's a master plan for this site, which this council uses to assist it in making planning applications. That master plan shows this site as being a development site within that overall master plan. It also shows that the primary idea around landscaping on that part of the site is to bolster the edge condition, that the northern boundary, the western boundary, the southern boundary, to prevent views outwards and views inwards, to mask development and to mitigate impacts from new development. So that's the approach we've taken to this site. Yes, we are losing some 50 trees across the site of varying conditions and quality. No one's mentioned the fact we are planting 215 new trees. Most of the trees on that site, I suspect, were either self-seeded or were trees that were planted by when it was a residential site. It was a prefab site, and they were back garden trees. We're now talking about this district, this county, this region's premier and most important employment site. And we have an obligation, in my view, to make full and effective use of that site. And in so doing, yes, we are going to lose some trees, but this is a scheme that's got the full support of your officers, including your tree officer. He's the specialist in this regard. And he's concluded that whilst the tree is of some quality, in the context of this site, in the context of development as a whole, and the context of the use of this site as an employment site, that loss is acceptable and can be mitigated, more than mitigated, by the new tree planting. So I don't say much more than that, unless you have any questions for me. We have, as the officer has said, had extensive pre-application discussions. We have amended the scheme to meet concerns expressed by those parties that have an interest in this site and professionals that have commented on it. And we've reached a position where we've got the full support of your officers, and I hope that you accept their recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just turn and see if there are any questions of clarification for you, Mr. Sensical. Can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time here this evening.
Thank you.
I now turn to our final speaker on this application, Councillor Sarah James, Ward Councillor. Good evening, Councillor James. 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. I know this site well. It sits on the edge of Harwell campus, nearest to East Hendred, where I live. And I worked on Harwell campus for over 2 decades. And for the first few years of that, my cycle commute took me right through this site 5 days a week. So I wish to bring my perspective as ward councillor and as a long-time local resident to this committee to explain why development of this particular corner of Harwell campus has come before you today. Harwell campus applications don't often make it to committee. Core policies 6 and 15 of our current local plan identify Harwell campus as by far the largest site for employment development in the district. So why is this application special? The report states that this was a site of prefab buildings, and I have no doubt that that's true. However, that's a long, long time ago. I'm not sure when the prefabs were cleared, but in 1999, when I started that daily cycle commute, this site was already well grown up with shrubs and trees. It's full of bird life and a wide variety of plants and cover. There's a lot of tree cover, as can be seen on the maps and satellite images that you've seen today, and much more than on most of Harwell campus. I'm 50 and I've known that site for half my lifetime, and in all that time it's been pretty wild. There's no recent memory of this as a built-up site. We often hear that England is one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world, and we hear this in the context, quite rightly, that that is a very bad thing. There is always the assumption that we should build on brownfield sites, not greenfield sites. Brownfield sites are just concrete, right? And greenfield sites are, well, they're green, right? In my ward, much of Harwell campus, which is a brownfield site, is far more biodiverse than most of the surrounding green fields, which have been intensively farmed in the post-war period. This is why the spatial planning within the campus is so important. That's not currently happening in a public and democratic way, and it really should. That's why we've hit the impasse that brings us here today. Core Policy 15B, which is quoted in the report, states that all new development at Harwell campus will be guided by a comprehensive development framework, and that proposals for development within the campus must demonstrate how they contribute towards a comprehensive approach to development. So there's been a couple of Harwell campus master plans, and you heard the last speaker mention that this is with this one, and the officers have seen that this is in line with the master plan. However, the development of those are just things that have been produced by Harwell campus and by consultants for them. They have not involved public consultation or led to an adopted supplementary planning document, as was envisaged in the local plan in Core Policy 15B. And you cannot even find them publicly with a web search. I only have a copy because I asked Harwell campus for one. So it's my contention that this application is in contravention of Core Policy 15B. Harwell campus is huge, with tens of hectares designated for employment yet. So why is this especially biodiverse and tree-covered corner of the campus coming forward for this particular development?
Councillor, I'm afraid you've got towards 3 minutes. You can summarise very quickly.
In the absence of an adopted comprehensive development framework for the campus, I really don't think that it can be justified to bring it forward. That's the problem here, is the Harwell campus plan, and that it's just what Harwell campus say they want to do. And please don't accept 2-tier cycle racks in the mix. They're really useless. There's loads of them already on Harwell campus that you can't use.
Thank you very much. There might be some questions, so let's just wait a second. Are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Hannaby.
Are you sort of saying that we don't have this built? Is that
not there on the campus? Yeah, I'm saying that that's the wrong part of the campus. The campus is hundreds of hectares. But, there's something like 90 odd hectares coming forward for employment still there. And if you see, you saw how tree covered it was. If you pull out from that view on Google Maps, it is the tree covered corner of the campus. It's the wrong place to be developing it. And it's all very well saying there's a campus master plan and it's in line with that. But the campus master plan is just a consultancy document written for Harwell campus. It's not, as core policy 15B was aiming at, a supplementary planning document that's been through any kind of public consultation or democratic process. And so I really don't think we should be using it as a development document as though it is. And I really do agree with core policy 15B that what we do need is a development plan like that. So we actually decide where development goes on Harwell campus with consideration for things like biodiversity, active travel connections to the facilities on the campus and that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? I wish to say thank you very much for your time, Councillor Green. I'm now going to turn. Oh, sorry, Councillor James. Apologies. I'm now going to suggest that we ask any questions of our officers. Does anyone have any questions for our officer? Councillor Hannity.
Yeah, we're focusing on the tree, so I'm focused on the consultees that we've done. And there's absolutely no response from Natural England or North Wessex down. Nothing. As I've already said, I sit on this committee for this county, and I know that they are very enthusiastic about keeping trees, etc. So this is really quite interesting for me, and also that it's not considered that an EIA was required as well. So we've heard that there's going to be 250 new trees, and I hope that our forestry officer will be working very hard to make sure we get a good diversity of trees and the correct ones in the right area. I don't think we can start reorganising Harwell campus. This is a business area, and it's obviously a business decision that we've got this before us. But it is interesting that neither of those have made any response to this application. So I really haven't an issue myself with it on those grounds.
Any further questions for our officer? Councillor Horton.
This is a very sort of nitpicky one, but in the comments from OCC Highways, there's OCC Transport, sorry, there's a comment about shower washing and changing, no objection subject to conditions. And I cannot find anything mentioning anything to do with shower washing changing facilities in the conditions. Can you just clarify if that's been covered or if I'm missing some documents?
No. That has been clarified with the applicants and with the OCC officers. It will be up to the future occupier if they would like to provide it. There is already a hub on the site which provides these facilities.
Okay, so I figured that was the answer. These are just shell. Thank you.
Anything further on for our officer? So I can't see anything, so I would suggest we move into debate. So someone like to put forward a motion on this application. Councillor Horton.
Given that we've heard it from a few of the speakers, I propose that we defer for a site visit.
Do we have a second to that proposal? Councillor Madison. Okay, so the proposal is that we defer this application for a site visit. I guess we have a motion, so let's debate it. So who would like to speak? Councillor Pickles.
So I just wonder, someone can tell me what we would achieve by doing a site visit. What we'd achieve by doing it. What would the objective be? Because I'm not sure what we'd learn more than looking at the photographs and looking at what the tree officers say.
Well, I suspect that what we would get from a site visit is we would be able to assess and appraise the amenity value of the tree that has been particularly identified. Though I personally confess that I'm not sure I'd be in a better place than our tree officer to make that judgment.
That's fine.
So, but that's just me, but it might be that others disagree. Councillor Hannaby.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I've made my statements earlier, and this is a site that is going to deliver a lot of employment for our areas, right? And our cemetery, in my own town, I'm in charge of the cemetery, and I had to take these lovely trees down, which we've all really wanted, because there was we had to provide other things, obviously, for people, and the trees had no merit at that time. However, we have put forward that we will replant with all sorts of species to make that a really good area, and I feel that that's exactly what will happen here. And we've got our officer on the case, and I think we've put pressure on the officer to make sure that the species can work well, and I mean, maybe even get in touch with the two people that haven't bothered, and I shall definitely be bringing that up again when I meet with them. But as I say, I think I don't think it'll be any merit, because we can't reorganise the campus, as I've just said.
Councillor
Can I just? I don't think anyone's disputing the employment benefits at all of the Harwell extension. But I tend to agree with Mike. Whether a site visit would just show perspective or scale or not, I don't know. But other than that, I know bugger all about trees. Excuse me. But I think the huge part of this is this a necessary part of the whole expansion? And it's been brought up several times that there doesn't seem to be an available public plan for whole expansion. So, I mean, is that the case? Have the officers seen sort of expansion plans?
I mean, we're in debate. It's an
important
question, though, so I don't know whether our officer could maybe come in and address, if that's okay.
Yes, I can try to share another document that was submitted with this application. This is the design and access statement, and it contains those two graphs that you can see. They are from the master plan for the Harwell development area, and as it was stated, yes, it's not a adopted supplementary document, but it is a guide that the officers are using when we are assessing different parts of the proposals. It states where the green area is going to be located and where the build form is going to be located. It also states what are the available and actually the height and the merits of the buildings in terms of the location within the AONB. These documents supposed to be part of the local plan. However, we never got to the adoption of it, but it was prepared to go to adoption, to consultation through the democratic service in terms of the consultation. So this document is available to the officers. Obviously, it is available upon request if anybody would like to see it. It's a comprehensive piece of document in terms of the design, but it guides the officers and the developers where the development is going and what the parameters of it are.
Thank you.
Sorry. So just a clarification, that means that this proposal is in line with CP16.
Yes, it is, and it is also in line with this document that has been proposed in terms of height of the buildings and location of the build form.
So I think we've had a bit of a debate around whether this is the purpose site visit. So I'm suggest we take a vote on that, and if that passes, it passes. If it doesn't, we'll look for another motion. So all those in favour of deferring for a site visit. Okay, those against? Any abstentions? So that motion fails. So can I call for an alternative motion?
I say that we accept the motion proposed by the officer.
And do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Briggs. I open the floor to debate.
I've had my say. I don't think I can add any more.
I think I just want to say that I don't think we're in a position to sort of like put forward an amendment making very specific recommendations about the landscaping scheme and that's been requested. I do think though that it's something that's been noted here, and certainly there is desire to, as far as possible, have mature trees. So I think that hopefully that's something that can be taken into consideration when the landscape scheme comes into force.
Can I
Councillor Pickles,
could I ask the opposite of that question?
please.
That's sorry, I was about to ask that.
Oh, sorry.
That question
Okay.
about, because I mean it's important that we do whatever we can to kind of preserve these kind of natural assets, as it were. And the specifics was mentioned by the first speaker in objecting. Is there anything that can be done to protect those particular trees, or any modification of the plan that could be done?
Bill Brown.
I mean, Amelia, please, yeah, you can come in and answer. I think
Yes, there were when we met for the first time at the pre-application application, there were 5, 6, or maybe 7 alterations of the design of the proposal, trying to achieve and keep that tree, and it was other constraints in terms of biodiversity or other landscape laws that were on balance worse than keeping that tree. And we had several meetings with the applicants to get to the best and more nature-rich application that we are now presenting to the committee tonight. So there were many alterations to the design and discussions between us and the technical officers and the applicants to achieve this proposal.
So it's been rigorously tested?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yes.
Okay. Anything further on this motion? In which case, I'm suggest we vote on this. So all those in favour of accepting the recommendation? Those against? Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you very much. We now move on to our next application, which is 28 and 30 Lime Road, Oxford. And Catherine, I believe you're commenting on this one.
Oh, yes, well, we something on it. We all use it like anti.
Thank you. Please be winner.
The next application to be considered is 28 to 30 Lime Road. One further representation has been received since the report was published. The representation makes the points that the highway site visits do not accurately reflect the times of congestion, specifically school times, and makes a request that further monitoring is carried out. The proposal is to convert 2 dwellings to HMOs. This would be 7 rooms in number 30 to the left and 9 rooms number 28 on the right. The rooms would be single occupancy only, with a shared kitchen in each property. The number of rooms at single occupancy would be secured by condition. The proposal also includes a 2-storey side extension, seen here on the right, and a single-storey and part 2-storey here. This slide shows that other than the extension, there would be little alteration to the external appearance. Existing driveway parking includes 3 spaces to the rear of number 30 and 1 space to the front of number 28, seen here. It's proposed to provide drop curves to the front of number 28 and 30 to provide 2 new spaces at number 30 and 2 additional spaces at number 28, and keeping the 3 to the rear at number 30. Bin stores and cycle stores have been shown on plans, but a condition is recommended to secure the detail and dimensions so that they meet capacity requirements. During the consultation process, concerns have been raised over the principle of the dwellings changing from family dwellings to HMOs. It is, however, recognised that using permitted development rights, both dwellings could change to HMOs with 6 rooms in each. So this would amount to a total of 12 individuals, without the need to make any changes to parking, cycle storage or waste storage. The proposed increase to 16 rooms, and specifically 16 individuals only, would not significantly increase the impact over 12 individuals, but does provide the opportunity to secure amenities for the residents. Concerns have also been raised over congestion and parking. RAZ have reviewed the proposal and carried out-of-hours visits and confirmed the requirement for 0.5 of a space per resident can be met, and they have no objections. The following slides show a selection, the parking availability of Sycamore Close and then Lime Road. Having looked at this concern in more detail, the concerns primarily relate to congestion over parked cars, bus routes and pedestrians during school drop-off hours and pick-up times. This would therefore be a traffic management issue relating to the school parking. It would not be reasonable to say a highway safety issue is being introduced as a direct result of this proposal. It is an existing situation at busy parts of the day, and again relates to traffic management primarily related to the school. The Highways Officer has not raised an objection in this respect. In conclusion, the proposal is not significantly greater in terms of impact than what could be achieved using permitted development rights for a 12-bed HMO, but it does include provision of parking, cycle storage and waste storage. It is necessary to include a condition to restrict the number of rooms to 16 and to single occupancy only, as an increase in individuals is likely to have an impact in terms of the level of parking, cycle parking and waste storage required. Conditions are also recommended to secure the 8 parking spaces and ensure they're provided before any resident moves in. Subject to conditions, Officer recommend the application for approval. I pass back to the Chair to consider the proposal in more detail. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll return to some questions from our speakers. Our first speaker is Councillor Adam Rankin, who's a representative of Botley and North Kingsley Parish Council. Councillor Rankin, thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, 3 minutes when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Botley and North Kingsley Parish Council would like to object to this application. In our opinion, Botley's being overwhelmed with HMOs and consider this particular application to be an over-intensification and over-development of a pair of essential residential dwellings. In the North Kingsley Neighbourhood Plan Character Assessment, the Amesroy estate is described as a successful residential area with many long-term residents, a stable population that has developed a strong sense of community akin to the feeling of a village. The removal of these 2 family homes and the insertion of 2 HMOs distinctly erodes this ethos, as this type of property will have short-term residents who are less invested in the area and the local community. The character assessment goes on to describe the area as low density and as a character to the roads that benefits from the greenery provided by the hedges and gardens of the frontages of these properties. The removal of these aspects to provide car parking on the front and sides of this pair of semis removes this aspect. Policy HS5 of the North Kingsley Neighbourhood Plan talks about a balance of housing types. The area of Amesroy now has a great deal of HMOs, So much so that valuable family homes are being lost. Therefore, we consider this application go against the Botley and North Hinksey neighbourhood plan. This application shows a large amount of parking spaces, so much that the available amenity space is greatly depleted to an extent that is probably insufficient for 16 occupants of these two proposed HMOs. This will also be exacerbated with the addition of sufficient waste disposal facilities and cycle parking. Waste disposal facilities, which the plans shown, I don't feel are sufficient. The parking arranged on two sides of number 30, so that the cars parked will have to park and leave right on the junction to a residential road where on-street parking is already at a premium. This is a bus route where it is not uncommon for buses to encounter difficulties due to the amount of parking. Adding this amount of residential parking would only exacerbate the situation. It is also feared that the addition of 16 adults to this part of Elms Rise may have a negative impact upon the 1950s utilities and drainage. In light of these points, Botley and North Hinksey Parish Council would like to see a refusal of this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions? Councillor Hawson.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned a policy from the neighbourhood plan. I was wondering if you could repeat which one it was.
HS5.
HS5. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any Councillor Batson?
You mentioned you're likely to be two family homes, but we've heard that under permitted development, this is unlikely to happen anyway. So the application, in fact, might improve on what the alternative situation is.
I suppose we never know. If this application is refused, obviously they would have to come back to the second application for the site extension of number 28. And then that could still house as many as 6 in each building. But we're trying to do what we can.
Agreed. Any further questions? In which case, thank you very much for your time, Councillor. And I will now move on to our next speaker, which is Neil Simpson, who is joining us virtually and speaking in support of this application. Mr. Simpson, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. First of all, I can hear you, and you've got 3 minutes when you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. First of all, I'd like to commend all the members of the committee and the planning staff and the members of the public for taking the time out of a busy schedule, for your stamina as well, much appreciated. On behalf of co-living, we believe this application is a partial solution in addressing the housing crisis that we have in Oxford and surrounding areas, and Vale of Whitehorse in particular. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight because I appreciate we're up against a busy schedule. That there have been a number of objections. The councillors mentioned some of them: parking, loss of character. I believe that all of these have been addressed by the highways officer and the planning officer. So, just for my part, we would say that we believe we've designed and delivered a policy compliant scheme, and we would commend it to the committee. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. That's all. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just see if there are any questions from members of the committee for you. Oh yes, Councillor Hannaby.
I'd be very interested in where would you get the students? Do you work with the universities?
No, that this is a misconception. I think that's come from some of the objections.
No, this is coming from me. I'm sorry, I hadn't read those. I just want to know how the students find you and find the accommodation.
Well, just to be clear, and thank you for your point. I think it's an important point that we need to clarify. Co-living, our typical tenants are young professional people who can't afford to go on the housing ladder. They've come to Oxford to work. We don't house students at all, so that's not a question, not really a question. Most of our tenants don't own cars. They're moving to Oxford often for their very first jobs. Obviously can't get on the housing ladder straight away. Just a reference back to the councillor's comment about typical tenants not getting involved in local communities. Most of our tenants stay with us on quite a long-term basis. They're working, they're employed, they become long-term members of the community, and they put down roots. Like I say, we believe co-living is a partial solution to that. If you go onto our website, you will see the type of property that we deliver. They are upper end. We like to think that there are homes that we would like to live in if we were in that situation. We believe passionately that people have a right to a home, and a decent home. So it's we don't like the term HMO. We believe it's co-living, and that's sort of that's who it's aimed at. That's the type of tenant that we typically have, and we have a good neighbour policy as well. We aim to be a good neighbour for all our, we actively manage all our properties to make sure that there are no issues with neighbours. If there are any issues, we respond very quickly.
Can you just very briefly expand on this good neighbour policy? So, I mean, how exactly does this work? So, for example, if there's an issue on the site, is there like a number that like neighbours can call up? If neighbours notice, for example, that there are bins left out, for example, is there a number? Is there a point of contact, I guess, as part of your good neighbour policy?
Yeah, absolutely. And we manage several properties in the Oxford area, and we've yet to have any formal objection to my knowledge. And we often get praise from neighbours for being good neighbours, because we fix fences, and we make things are kept tidy. Quite often, and when we come, often the properties we buy are often in a very poor condition, and we upgrade them. All our properties are upgraded to the top EPC levels. They're all A and B, so they're the maximum environmental grades that you can achieve with these properties. But at the same time, as has been noted, the properties retain their residential character. These will still be recognisably extended, but recognisably houses in the street. So it's often very difficult to establish which. I would often challenge people: can you tell which is one of our properties and which is a normal house?
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Are there any further questions? Councillor Shaw.
Yeah. Do you actually actively monitor your properties, or do you just rely on neighbours to complain if there are issues?
No. Yeah, thank you for your question again. No, that's an excellent question. No, we're actively involved in managing and monitoring all our properties. Like I say, the amount of rents our tenants are paying, partly because it's Oxford, but partly because of who they're targeted at, means that we have to be a responsive landlord and responsible landlord, and we work very closely with the district council. Obviously, we have licensing and everything else, but we aim to go well beyond and above. We are an award-winning co-living company. We believe we are a responsible landlord. We think, as I say, we understand the reputation the sector has, and we are actively seeking to address that.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions we have for you. So I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm now going to turn to any questions that we may have of our officer. I think that's right. Yes. So any questions for Catherine? Oh, Councillor Shaw.
Yeah. With the parking spaces, are they all actually accessible? Because we've been sent photographs where, I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily at this site, but there are 3 parking spaces, but there's a lamppost slap bang in the middle of the middle parking space. So is there a lamppost here
There is. That's the situation with the spaces in front of number 28. Yeah, but we've discussed that with the planning agent, and they will have to move that. So that's tied into the conditions before anybody moves into it. We need to see that the access details. So the access details as shown, it doesn't have the street lamp there, so we do need them to be accessible. And then there's also a second condition around the parking that requires the 8 spaces to be in place and not obstructed. So but we're fairly happy that the secure measures tied into the conditions. That means they have to move it, and we've had discussions with their planning agent. They're aware of that, and they will need to do that.
It's right on a junction. I mean, it does concern me that, backing on or backing off, potentially going to be obstructing the highway.
There's 2 points on that. There are double lines, WLO lines around that junction onto Sycamore Road. So in terms of visibility, there is that visibility there. But the highways officers have been and had a very close look at this one, and had a look in the evening and an early morning visit, and have not raised any conditions about those bin spaces so close to a junction. I think if there were concerns, we would have heard about it fairly early on.
Okay, are there any further questions? I've just got one on condition 7, which is the waste recycling stores, etc. So I genuinely have no idea for a property like this. Like, how many bins are there going to be? And is it like there'll be like one very large recycling bin or 2 very? So I don't know if you know this, and I know that we're going to get the details, but I do always worry, about things like bins. So I mean, how many bins are there going to be? Is it one for the whole property, or
what we tend to do? I mean, this isn't flats, but what we tend to do for flats is ask for sort of large bins, so it's increased capacity. I haven't got the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that the waste management officer can run the calculation and say, we need this for the general waste, this for the recycling, this for the garden waste, and this for food. And that's why, even though it's shown on there, I'm not satisfied that that's a large enough area to store all that's required, but I'm satisfied that there was enough space on the site to do that. And so by condition, we will ask for that details, run it past the waste management officer, and confirm that enough is being provided for the 16 individuals.
And we'll ensure, in addition to that it's not going to be like kept where people should be parking or where the cycle should be, because I think that's the difficulty, right? Is you've got cycling areas, parking spaces, bins. So as long as everything's joined up, I mean, but I'll bring some more up. Councillor Horsham.
It's following on from the same point actually regarding the large bins, which is, I know that Sycamore Road is on a relatively steep hill. It's not as bad as some other areas up there. Is there a limit to when we stop being able to use those such large bins because they just run away from the bin collectors?
Can I say that the waste department is excellent at making sure that the right bins are in the right place for the right people.
We do provide
and the time is coming on, so I think I wouldn't want any more discussion about waste bins.
Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, still on the waste issue. I mean, are properties going to be treated as one? So there'll be one area installed.
Yes, and that means by doing that, we avoid having a bin stored on the front, bin stored where they could be a sign that it's an HMO. It would be a single bin store close to the exit where the 3 parking spaces are at the back of 30, which means it's got easy access to the highway. It's not a particularly large distance for either number 28 residents or number 30 residents to put their waste in there. So
okay.
Are there any further questions? In which case, I'm going to suggest we move into the. Sorry. Did you want to comment?
Can I just go back to the point that Councillor Shaw made about the lamppost? Condition 4 sets out the provision of car parking spaces, and I think we would just want to tighten that condition slightly to make sure that where we talk about prior to the occupation of the new development, a car parking spaces shall be provided in accordance with the details shown on the approved plan. What we need to do is ensure specifically that those parking spaces are unobstructed, and therefore the removal of the lamppost needs to happen before. So I would suggest to members, if you were minded, that officers reword that condition to ensure that the obstruction, which is currently the lamppost, is addressed, because technically they could comply with that and the lamppost could remain. So I'd just like to put
So
that
would be a
forward.
preoccupation condition.
At the moment, it is prior to occupation. I want to add in that those spaces should be fully accessible and no obstruction, so that it ties down that matter.
So, thank you very much. So I'll call for a motion, and if it's a motion to approve,
Yeah,
we
it
will,
would be with amendment.
Councillor Pickles.
Well, I think we have to approve this particular application,
Yeah.
and I think we have to. I mean, I think that it's a good suggestion that Emily's made about having a condition which requires the car parking space to be on.
So we have a motion to approve with that amendment to condition number 4. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Raymond. Thank you. Right, I open the floor to debate. Would anyone like to say anything further?
Can I just
Councillor
say
Hannay.
that I think we, through our conversations, I think we've got a really good feel about. I was interested. I don't know why I've got students in my head. Perhaps it's just because it's Oxford in that area. But we have heard that it is for people that are finding it difficult to get a roof over their heads. We've heard that there's monitoring going on. So I hope that that is the case. I'm sure it is. We've been told so. And I just think that with the extension, that there would 16 people would have a roof over their head.
Thank you. Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I disagree. I don't think this is what this application should be approved. To my mind, on one hand, it's nice to have it clarified that that it's not intended for student occupation, because particularly with Brooks moving out of the Hungerford campus, there's going to be an awful lot fewer students in that particular area. But that road does see an awful lot of congestion, particularly due to the fact Matthew Arnold School is about a quarter of a mile away. I know it's a limit on how. I know that there's the fallback option to, I think it was 12 as opposed to 16, but it really doesn't feel to me like we should be taking away 2 family homes to provide for 16 individual occupants. Regarding how, if I was to have my say on it, the thing I found curious when I was looking into things on this was we talk about CP22 of the local plan, which I managed to lose, but it refers to the
housing mix.
Yeah, regarding housing mix, it refers to a specific document, which I'm now trying to find the name of, the strategic housing, I can't remember what the MA stands for, which basically says that in the Vale, actually, we need more larger homes, not more smaller ones, which I find somewhat curious, but I'm not quite sure how this lines up with that. If that's what's defining how CP22 is being interpreted. But regardless, I don't think that this is a sort of application that should be going in here.
Thank you. Councillor Briggs.
Yeah, it's about it being a HMO, because I know there is a good disagreement. People disagree with HMOs as opposed to family homes. But somebody that used to live and work in Oxford, I used to live, and I do know that they are in high demand. Because people can't afford anything else. Yeah, I'm sure it's not the first choice.
Anything further on this?
I was just saying that the problem with looking at Vale-wide requirements, property is really part of Oxford from a housing perspective. So therefore, there is a lot of young people in their first jobs. Requiring accommodation. I would just say I kind of understand the objection because there's a large number of people living in a relatively small space. However, on the permitted development, 12 people is probably as in a conversion, whereas this is actually looks like a high quality conversion being done in a controlled way with things like waste and car parking being sorted out properly. So, I don't particularly like these kinds of solutions to the housing crisis. We should be building better homes that are affordable. However, I am minded to support this simply because we need this kind of accommodation, and this is being done in a controlled way. And I think looking at the website which you were browsing, this organisation is seemingly doing a good job with these kinds of accommodation.
Anything further on this before we vote? In which case, I'm going to suggest we call for a vote. So we have a motion to approve this application with that minor amendment to condition 4. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That passes. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine. Just while we're setting up for the next application, which is the land to the rear of Orchard Farmhouse, I'm going to take my shares prerogative and suggest we just very quickly move the appeals information up. This is just a report. The only thing for us to do with agenda item 12 is to note this report. So can I consider it noted?
Yeah, I think we'd be
great. Perfect. So that has been noted. So that's good. Now we move on to what is now our final agenda item, which is agenda item 11, land to the rear of Orchard Farmhouse. And Sarah, I believe you're presenting on this. Oh yes, please. Actually, if anyone needs to have a 1 minute break to get some water or go to the toilets, yeah, we'll take a 2 minute breather. Got it. Can I unmute?
We are.
Excellent. So we will continue, and we're going to hear our last item, the land to the rear of Orchard Farmhouse. And Sarah, I believe you're presenting on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much.
So this application is referred to committee at the request of Councillor Sarah James. So the application is for a new dwelling to be built on land which was formerly used as a bowling green in East Hendred. It's located behind what was formerly the Plough Public House. It's on the screen there. The Plough and the former oak room at the front here are currently being converted into dwellings, and there's also permission for another new dwelling to the side here. As part of that permission, the bowling green was being kept,
and a new clubhouse was to be built to the side on the site of Charity Barn here. The site is within the conservation area, and there are a number of listed buildings surrounding the site, a plan of which is in the report. This is their proposed site plan. So the site, the new dwelling has been sited fairly central within the site, having been amended during the application process to move it 3.5 metres further north, further away from the boundary with the neighbours to the south. It'd be accessed using the existing access point of Orchard Lane and have parking and turning to the front and a garden to the rear. It's been designed in a style of a series of joined-up barns in an L shape, which will vary between single story and 1.5 story. I'll just show you, these are the elevations to show you that. And then the floor plan, so it's ground floor plan, and then that's the first floor, which will also be within the roof. There's some photographs of the site. So this is standing in what was the car park to the bowling green, looking eastwards towards the old chapel and chapel house. It's looking south towards Chantry Cottage and Yard House, and that's looking northwards towards the rear of the plough. So the other end looking westwards. That's looking eastwards. So this on the left is what was this like currently the old changing rooms, and you've got old chapel and chapel house there. So this is the entrance to the site to what was the pub car park. Also to the right of where a new dwelling would be built. It's further back from Orchard Lane, sort of the entrance to the site with the plough on the left. And then this is the view from Chapel Square, the footpath along there looking across the site. So the site is behind here. So the relevant issues are covered in the report, but in summary, a bowls need assessment has been provided, which reviews the existing facilities for bowls across the district within the catchment of the site. So we can concluded that the bowling green in East Hendred is surface to requirements in terms of leisure provision locally, with there being sufficient capacity available to other clubs to meet current and future demand. This seems to concur with Council's own updated leisure facility assessment and strategy, that future demand for bowls can be met within existing clubs identified in that strategy. East Hendred wasn't one of them within that strategy. So the bowling green is therefore considered surface to requirements, and the application would comply with policy DB34. In terms of proposal, the design and scale of the dwelling is considered appropriate for its context. The presence of a building on the site will reduce the openness of the site and the contribution it makes as an open space in the conservation area. And this will lead to less than substantial harm to the conservation area. As such, the public benefits of the proposal should be weighed against the level of harm identified. And the level of harm is considered to be at the lower end in this case. The provision of new housing and of self-build housing, which this is, are obviously public benefits, which weight can be given to. The proposal would also not harm a major neighbour amenity or highway safety, and there's no other technical matters that would prevent permission from being granted. Therefore, overall in the balance, it's considered that the public benefits do outweigh the low level, less than substantial harm to the conservation area in this case, and the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We'll return to you for some questions once we hear. We've had a few statements on this application. We have one registered speaker, which is Councillor Sarah James. Councillor James.
Hello again, and thank you, Chair. Okay, so.
Please, yes, sorry.
So I did ask for this to come to committee as the local ward member. So this site was formerly Moorland Bowls Club's Green, and planning permission has already been granted, as you've heard, for the conversion of the former plough into a dwelling called Orchard Farmhouse, and the Oak Room, which was the former Bowls Clubhouse, to a dwelling, and for the building of a replacement clubhouse closer to the green. And committee members will have seen that this application has provided evidence that the bowls facility is no longer needed. But also, you've probably seen, if you've read the responses to the planning application, that there is much contention about the history of events provided in the bowls need assessment. So this has been a throughout the sort of recent history of this site, since the first applications came forward to convert the pub and things, this has been sort of in amongst the community quite a difficult sort of planning permission. And given the history of the site and the kind of concerns that are raised about the facts and the needs assessment and things, I felt it was important to the community that it should be considered and decided in public, which is why I asked for it to come to you. And so I very, very much welcome the changes that have been made by the applicant to this plan in comparison to a previous application that was brought forward on this site for a house there. And it was then withdrawn, and that they made the changes to the positioning of the house within the plot, which was in response to comments received. I mean, I would like to thank the applicant for this consideration, because it was consideration shown to others, and it was enabling, it was constructive. My main concern is the impact on the conservation area. The location plans in your report pack on pages 157 and 158 show very clearly what the quite significant change in character that's proposed. Currently, there's an arrangement of dwellings around an open space in the middle, and granting this application does remove that sense of the open space in the middle. It puts something to the right in the middle there. So that's the change in character and why it's sort of noticeable in the conservation area there. Of course, that potential harm there is to be weighed against the benefit to housing supply and self-build supply. I do feel this is quite limited. This application provides one new home and also is one self-build site. But it takes a very, very large footprint to do that, and in a sensitive location. So I think that sort of weighs against it. But I leave it to your judgment. I'm just very happy that it can be heard in public today.
So thank you very much, Councillor James. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or clarifications for you. No. In which case, I'm suggesting we move on to questions for our officer. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for our officer on this application? In which case I will suggest we move into debate. So would someone like to put forward a motion on this application?
Can I propose that we accept this as the officer recommend?
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Baxter, thank you very much. Well, I open the floor. Would anyone like to say anything on this application? Councillor Hannaby.
Yeah, I know it's always difficult when you lose pubs in villages, etc., and the landscape changes, etc. But I suppose from my perspective of putting buildings in small areas in my past life, I think this is fitting in this one extremely well, and obviously time and effort's been put into making sure that the balance, etc., is there. I wouldn't want to see two dwellings in there. I think it would be too cramped. So from my perspective, I'm quite content with what's there.
Anything further? In which case, I'll suggest we move to a vote. So all those in favour of this application, motion. Those against, any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that is approved. And with that, it just leaves me to thank our many officers that came to support us this evening. Thank our members of the public who came to speak in those statements, and to thank you, committee, for a long and spirited meeting. So thank you very much. And Bertie, can you please confirm that the live stream has ended?
It's not one thing, then.